Hi, anyone who's made a pop-up book in After Effects the old-fashioned way will know how many complex, frustrating and time-consuming hours it can take. This method uses a simple camera move while the pages stay still. Now, though it's got some restrictions, it's a lot simpler. And the only thing you need to do is create one page and then duplicate it. So let's get started. Create a new comp. We call this sheet 1. It's about 40 seconds long, but whatever you need. Then add a paper texture. This one is from Video Copilot. I'll put the link below. And what we'll need to do is scale this. In this case about 13. And then to rotate it 90 degrees. Move its anchor point, and this will be on the Y because it has been rotated, over to the very side of the page, and this is critical because this is where the page will turn. Make the layer 3D, and in material options, accepts shadows is on, accepts lights is off. And close it up. Now we add a solid, new solid, comp size is fine. This will become a placeholder. So what we need to do is scale it and position it. This is not critical, but it should sit on top of the page. Move its anchor point down. And again the same thing, and it's critical that the anchor point sits on the very bottom of the solid. Now make it 3D, and its Z position is -1, so it's sitting in front of the page. Material options, cast shadows on, accepts lights is off, and accept shadows is off. Close it up. Duplicate it, Control Command D, and then move the duplicate under the paper. Move its Z position to +1, so it's sitting behind the sheet. Rename it, solid back. And we may as well rename the top one as solid front. Now we add a camera, new camera. I'm just using a 50mm. Okay. We then need a new null. Parent the camera to the null. And make the null 3D. Open its transform properties. Right click on the time and go to 3 seconds, which is 300. Enter, and keyframe the X rotation, which will be at 0. Then same thing, right click and go to 6 seconds. Keyframe the rotation to 60, and keyframe, make a keyframe for orientation, which will be at 0. Then go to 8 seconds and keyframe the Y orientation to 181. And make sure it's 181 or it will go backwards. So now the camera will move around and the page will look like it's, this is the opening sequence, it lays backwards, then it flips over. Close that up. Now we're going to have the solids flap open and closed. So solid front, close material options, take your time back to 0 and set a keyframe for X rotation, which will be at 0, and move along to 2 seconds and set the X rotation at 94. Move along 5 frames, set the X rotation to 88, move ahead another 4 frames and set the X rotation to 90. That'll just give a little bit of bounce when it lands, and you can finesse that. Then moving along to the 6 second mark, make a keyframe so that it's at 90, and then at the 8 second mark, set it the X rotation to 0. So as the page moves, it closes and opens. Now doing a similar thing to the back, starting at the 6 second mark, set the X rotation at 0, 8 second mark, make it minus 94, move ahead 5, make it minus 88, move ahead 4, again just putting in the bounce, and make it minus 90. At the 12 second mark, make a keyframe so it's still at minus 90, and at the 14 second mark, keyframe to 0. Now select all, which is Control Command A, and press U so that we see all the keyframes. Select all the keyframes and press F9 to convert them into easy ease. Now you can change the timing, so if you want the pages to be slower, faster, whatever, by holding down the end keyframe and holding Alt and dragging either in or out. We'll stay with things as they are. Move back to the beginning, press U, everything will close, click off, and we're going to add a new light, which we'll call ambient, and it is an ambient light type, and the intensity is 50. We're going to add a new light, and we're going to call it point. It is going to be a point light. The intensity is going to be 100. And OK. and duplicate that point light. Select the first point light and move it in the Y to the bottom of the page and in the Z to just on the corner of that page. Select point light 2, bring it down to the bottom of the page, on the Y. On the Z, move it, so if that's the center part of the book, move it over to where the page would be where it opened. Go into its position and its Z position, which is minus 444.4, make that positive 444.4. You will have to move these lights around. It'll depend on quite a few things, including how large your elements are that pop up and down. But for the moment, this gives us a good starting point. So now as you move, shadows will appear on both sides of the page. Close that up. And you've basically now made the pages of the book. In your project panel, duplicate sheet 1, Control D, Control Command D, and you'll get sheet 2. Then make a new composition, which we'll call Final. OK. And drag sheet number 1 and sheet number 2 into it. Click off it and double click on sheet 2 to open its pre-comp. Select the null, press U, move the time indicator until the X rotation is at 60, then delete the keyframes. Go back to the final comp and drag sheet 2, not the beginning of the sheet, but sheet 2, to the 6-second mark. Now what this means is it lays back, and as it turns, the second sheet appears underneath it. Now, if you wait for sheet 2 to turn, you'll notice that it does something strange. It goes underneath sheet 1. So go to where sheet 2 is opened and not moving. With sheet 2 selected, go into Edit, Split Layer, then take the top layer, the selected layer, and move it above sheet 1. So what happens now is that as the page turns, it goes on top of page 1. In the project panel, select sheet 2 and make sure it is sheet 2, and duplicate that to become the number of pages that you want. So in our case, we'll do 6. Select sheet 3, down to sheet 6, and drag them into your final comp. Then select sheet 3, (12 seconds), and drag the whole of the layer to the 12-second mark. So again, just as the page begins to turn, the new one appears. Again, wait until it's closed, fully opened, I beg your pardon. Then Edit, Split Layer, take sheet 3, the selected one, and put it on the top. Go to sheet 4, take it to 18 seconds, Drag the whole layer to the 18-second mark. Wait for it to turn over and become still. Edit, split layer, take sheet 4 to the top. Sheet 5, going to 24 seconds. Same thing. Waiting for it to become still. Edit, split layer, drag it to the top. Now, sheet 6 is actually going to become the back cover of the book. So move it to the 6-second mark. Open its pre-comp by double-clicking on it, and move or delete the orientation markers. So in this case, the back cover will remain open at the end. Going back to your final, select sheets 1 and 6, scale 103. Again, we're making the cover from sheet 1 and the back cover from sheet 6. Open the sheet 1 pre-comp, delete the solids. Now you could replace this paper with another texture, but for the moment what we're going to do is just add hue and saturation to the paper layer, colorize, the saturation at 50, and the lightness at -25. You of course can do what you like. Select the hue and saturation and Control-Command-C, make a copy of it. Open sheet 6, select the paper layer, Control-Command-V, and while we're here, delete the solids, and go back to sheet 1, take it back to the beginning where it's standing upright, and now you can add any decorations, titles, etc. that you want. We'll just add a little bit of text. Title, position it, make it 3D, and make sure that its position is -1 on the Z. Then as it moves, it stays with it. Going back to the final. Now as the page turns, we can see the front and the back covers. Going to sheet 2, close that for the minute. Select the solid front, and in your project panel, select the replacement image, and holding down Option Alt, drag it over solid front. You'll now see that the image has replaced the solid. Open it up, transform properties, and you'll find it safer to scale and position the image using these numbers rather than trying to drag it around. With the scale, if you hold down Control, Command, as you drag, it will increment in smaller numbers. And with the positions, you may find They do unexpected things, but don't play with the Z position. Move until the page is turned over. And close up solid front. Select solid back. Duplicate the layer. Control Command D. Then with the layer selected, select the image you wish to replace it with. And holding down Alt, drag it on top. And the same with the other solid. Select the image, holding down Alt, drag it on top, and scale. And position. And the same with the other. Scale it and position it wherever you want it. And that's basically it. You can, of course, add as many elements as you want onto that page just by duplicating and replacing them. So now what you've got is now you'll see here that you will need to reposition the lights because that shadow gets cut off too severely. That might take a little bit of trial and error. One other little trick is to add a new adjustment layer in your effects and presets. Add the bulge effect. Move the bulge center to above the page, a little bit above the page in the center. Scale the horizontal in this case to around about 350. Scale the vertical so that it sits just above everything when it's all opened up. Change the bulge height. This will depend on what your particular setup is. And the taper radius to something quite gentle, like about 300 in this case. So now as the pages turn, they will have some flexibility in them. And taking the adjustment layer, drag it to just after the cover is opened. That way the cover won't get distorted. Well, thank you very much. That's about it. Have fun, experiment with it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.